Quincy took a few quick steps forward before he stopped and turned back to see that the rescue car had disappeared from his sight. His finger caressed his cheek that she had kissed, as a weird emotion that he didn't even notice swelled in his heart. "Sir?" Quincy's close confidant, Ivan, walked over. "Carlos has counted the hostages. There are 38 of them." Ivan and Carlos had been working for the Kloss family since they were young. When the Kloss family fell from its pedestal a few years ago, they were let go as well. When Quincy returned, they got the news and came back to work for him. Quincy's expression was dark, and people couldn't read him. Right now, they want to use the 38 hostages to force us to give in. If we do, all of our hard work in the past 2 months will be for nothing. The only thing we can do now is to put ourselves in danger. Ivan instantly replied, "Sir, let me go." Quincy raised a hand and narrowed his eyes. "No, I'll go myself." Kira, who came to execute the mission together with Quincy, exclaimed, "There are over 20 rioters inside. All of them are fierce and ruthless. You can't go in and risk your life. Let me go instead." Quincy glanced at her. Although he had no feelings for her, he still admired her as his partner. She was decisive, brave, and courageous. She worked for her goals and had a passion that regular women wouldn't have. Quincy explained his plans of subduing the rioters to Kira and Ivan, saying in a low voice, "Wait for my signal and follow the plan. No matter what happens, do not act on your own without my signal. Understand?" "Yes." Following Quincy's instructions, Kira dropped under the window quietly, watching what was happening in the hotel. After Quincy was searched, he walked in with his hands raised. Dozens of guns instantly turned towards Quincy's forehead. Quincy's expression didn't change. His eyes were dark as he was completely calm. But Kira felt her heart jumping to her throat from fear and anxiety. The leader of the rioters came forward to negotiate with Quincy. He told Quincy to let his detained men go. If not, he would kill all the hostages. Instead, Quincy suggested, "Let the hostages go. You only need me as a hostage. Don't kill innocent people. Otherwise, with every one person you kill, 2 of your detained men will die." His eyes were cold while his expression was firm, with no way for others to put in a word. He was on the weaker side, yet he wasn't scared at all. Instead, his calm and murderous expression made the others shiver in fear. They negotiated for nearly 20 minutes before the rioters were finally convinced by Quincy. They let all the hostages go and only kept Quincy with them. They hated him to the core. If he didn't order to let their men go, they would make this place his burial ground today. The leader of the rioters tied Quincy's hands and stood in front of him with a gun in his hand. "We have let the hostages go. Now it's your turn to fulfill your promise." Before the leader could finish speaking, Quincy, who had secretly loosened his restraints, snatched the gun from the man before he wrapped a hand around his neck and pressed the gun against his temple. He was so quick, it shocked everyone. "Tell your men to move back." Seeing that Quincy had taken their leader hostage instead, the rioters were all in disbelief. They wanted to kill the cunning Quincy so badly. "You went back on your word. Don't listen to this man. When I'm dead, you can elect a new leader. You should all fight until the end." The rioters all raised their guns and knives and pointed them at Quincy. The atmosphere was very tense, and anything could trigger a fight. Quincy glanced at Kira, who was outside of the window, and made a signal. The lights in the hotel suddenly turned off. The scene erupted into complete chaos. at the safety camp in a small temporary building on the outskirts. All of the saved hostages had hid themselves in the building. None of them dared to come out. The little girl that Bella had saved had finally found her family. She had a single father who was really young and was losing his mind from losing his daughter in the crowd. When he saw the girl in Bella's arms at the safety camp, he was terribly grateful to Bella. Bella went to the second level and stared in the town's direction. Were those gunshots? She unconsciously clenched her hands tightly, her palms covered with cold sweat. How was Quincy right now? Those rioters were extremely ruthless and fierce and saw lives as nothing. They had taken so many people as hostages. As the leader, not only did Quincy have to save the hostages, he had to deal with the rioters as well. He was in a rather dangerous situation. Bella couldn't stay still, so she ran back downstairs. After the rescue vehicle brought all of the hostages to the safety camp, they planned to return to the hotel, which was why Bella snuck into the vehicle when nobody noticed. The vehicle was a bus. She hid where the driver couldn't see her. The drive took about 30 minutes before the hotel. The two sides. The smell of gunpowder still lingered in the air. After the driver got out of the bus, Bella got out too. She stood behind the bus, not daring to act casually. The town's ambulance had arrived, and Bella saw several restrained men dressed in black uniforms being carried into the ambulance. Bella went forward and asked a nurse, "Can I ask, what is the situation inside?" The nurse looked very proud. "With Mr. Claus here, it's impossible for these rioters to cause trouble. Those that aren't dead have all been arrested." Bella's heart leapt with happiness. She had to admit that Quincy was rather strategic and brave. "So, did Mr. Claus get injured?" Bella asked again. "There, he's walking out." Bella looked at the direction where the nurse was pointing, but she saw Quincy walking out of the hotel with a woman in his arms. She quickly moved away and hid behind someone's back. She saw who Quincy was holding and furrowed her eyebrows. Quincy placed Kira, who had been shot in the leg, on the ambulance stretcher. Kira's face was a bit pale as she pulled Quincy's arm. She seemed to disregard her own injuries, only concerned about his well-being. "Are you hurt anywhere? Do you want to go to the hospital with me for a checkup?" A bullet had grazed Quincy's arm. It was merely a small injury to him, and he didn't need to go to the hospital. Besides, there were quite a few things for him to settle over here first. "I'm fine." "Quincy, you can leave Ivan and the rest to settle things here themselves. You should go back to the safety camp to rest." Quincy nodded. "I'll arrange it. Take care of yourself. I'll come visit you in the hospital when I'm free." Seeing the two part with hesitation, Bella turned around and left in confusion. Bella walked down the street with a gloomy face. It wasn't that the earlier scene had made her jealous or sad, but it woke her up suddenly. After what happened with the rioters, she almost forgot why she had come here. She came to look for her older sister, not for a relationship. She touched her lips. At the thought that she had kissed Quincy rashly after he had saved the girl and her, she wanted to slap herself. What would he think of her? Never mind. His opinion of her wasn't important anyway. Kira was more suited to him, with a similar family background and working the same job where they could accompany and protect each other. After her older sister had hurt the Claus family and him, wasn't the goal for him to be happy? Now that the rioters had all been arrested, they should return to Bismarck soon. She should find out about that photo instead. With this thought, Bella relaxed. After Quincy instructed Ivan about how to settle things in the hotel, he took Carlos back to the camp with him. he ignored his injured arm and asked Carlos to bring Bella over instead. He wanted to ask her properly about what that kiss meant. From the logbook, Carlos found the room Bella was registered in and went up to find her. However, the person who shared the room with Bella said that she had left about an hour ago and never returned. Carlos went back downstairs and relayed the information to Quincy. Quincy furrowed his eyebrows. He told her to stay put. Where did she go now? The safety camp was built temporarily and had a simple infrastructure, so it didn't have any surveillance cameras. If Bella had run away, it wouldn't be easy to find her. "Sir, how about I drive out and look for her?" Seeing Quincy's dark expression, Carlos asked carefully. Quincy's face froze. "I'll go." "Sir, you're injured. Bandage the wound properly first." "It's barely anything." Quincy got in the SUV and drove out of the temporary camp. But he had only gotten a few feet away when he saw a slender figure walking towards the camp. If it wasn't Bella, who could it be? Bella didn't want to return to the camp, but because her bag and ID cards were there, she had no choice but to return. Quincy stopped the car. Bella was quickly approaching, and he leaned back and lit a cigarette. Ash-green smoke covered his eyes. Warm anger showed up in his eyes. Just as Bella was about to walk past the SUV, its door suddenly opened. When she saw the man get out of the car looking gloomy, she took several steps back. "Mr. Klaus, are you going out?" Bella greeted him. After all, he had saved her from a rioter. She couldn't act sternly to him like before. Quincy flicked the ash off his cigarette as his expression remained indifferent. "Where did you go?" "I couldn't sleep, so I went to take a walk around." The moment she said that, he growled. "Don't you know it's very dangerous here? It wasn't easy for us to save you, yet you are off alone again? Are you trying to make our lives harder, or are you trying to show that you can save yourself?" Bella widened her eyes from being yelled at by him so suddenly. She remained frozen for a few seconds. One of her ears was still numb from his shouting. Staring into his murderous eyes, Bella shrunk into herself. She didn't want to argue with him about anything, so she admitted her mistake obediently. "I'm sorry. I know I'm at fault. I won't add to your burden anymore." With that said, she wanted to walk past him. Quincy's face darkened even more. He grabbed her wrist and threw her towards the car. He took her by the waist and stood in front of her, casting a tall shadow over her. The two of them stood really close to each other as he leaned down, his masculine scent enveloping her. Bella's long lashes fluttered as her heart skipped a beat. Quincy stared at her cold and exquisite face, leaning closer as his scorching breath sprayed by her ear. "Don't you have anything else to say to me?" Bella's fingers curled together, her palms sweating as she lifted her hand to press against his chest. She looked to the side, avoiding his eyes as she smiled stiffly. "You've worked hard, Mr. Klaus. You're the hero in all of our hearts tonight." The next second, he pulled her chin back, forcing her eyes to meet his dark and impatient ones. Bella's smile left her lips as she said with furrowed eyebrows, "Does Mr. Klaus want me to talk about that kiss?" Quincy remained silent. However, his gaze on her darkened slightly. He really wanted her to talk about that kiss. Bella explained with a tingling scalp. "When you saved the girl and me, I was really touched and grateful to you. So, in my rashness, I kissed you." "It was only rashness and nothing else?" Quincy asked darkly. Bella laughed. "Do you want it to be something else?" Quincy's handsome face inched closer towards Bella, the tip of their nose almost touching. "Mr. Klaus, aren't you worried that Kira would be jealous if you do this?" "Kira would be jealous?" Quincy stared at Bella for a while with dark eyes, before he suddenly saw several flower petals on her head. If he remembered correctly, those flowers grew in front of the hotel. Instead of staying in the safety camp, she went to the town's hotel? And even saw Kira and him? Ha! He chuckled softly. Bella didn't think that there was anything funny about their conversation, and when he suddenly laughed, goosebumps started to rise on her skin. His face was terribly close to hers. His scorching breath sprayed on her face, annoying her a little. She pushed his shoulder and glared at him with a tense expression. "What are you laughing at?" "My arm is injured. Come and help me bandage it." He let go of her and started to walk back towards the camp. Watching him, Bella thought that he was really strange. How could someone change the topic of the conversation so quickly? She had asked if he wasn't afraid if Kira would be jealous, yet he ended up laughing and asking her to help him bandage his arm. This man was too confusing. Quincy had a room to himself in the camp. Bella hesitated for a while about going in. However, at the thought that he had saved her, she ended up following him into his room. By the time she entered the room, Quincy had already taken off his black uniform. Bella froze slightly at the sight of his naked upper body. He sat down on a chair as he glanced at Bella. "You've already seen me naked? Why is your face so red from seeing my chest?" You... Bella's face flushed red. "I haven't actually seen you naked." Although they had been intimate before, she had never really taken a proper look at his body.